The rain slammed hard against the glass walls of Ethan Cole's penthouse as two security officers stepped in front of him. "You need to leave the property, sir." Ethan blinked slowly. "What did you just say?" The taller guard lowered his eyes awkwardly. "The ownership was transferred this morning." "No." Ethan laughed once, but it sounded broken. "This is my home. It belongs to Mrs. Vanessa Cole now." Ethan stared at the man as if he'd spoken another language. Behind him, movers carried out his paintings, furniture, even the grand piano he bought for his mother 2 Christmases ago. One of the movers accidentally dropped a framed wedding photo. The glass shattered across the marble floor. Vanessa didn't even flinch. She stood near the elevator in a black coat, arms folded calmly, watching him fall apart like she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "You planned this?" Ethan whispered. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. "I warned you not to underestimate me. You were my wife, and you were naive." Ethan's breathing became uneven. "You took everything." "No," she corrected softly. "You signed everything away." The elevator doors opened behind her. "And that," she said before stepping inside, "was your smallest mistake." The doors closed. Ethan stood frozen while thunder shook the city outside. 3 years earlier, Ethan Cole had nothing but 2 shirts, an old laptop, and a dream too big for the neighborhood he grew up in. His mother used to work double shifts at a diner just to keep food on the table. "Sleep a little," she would beg whenever she saw him coding late at night. "I'll sleep when we stop struggling," Ethan would answer. At 16, he fixed broken phones for neighbors. At 19, he built software from his tiny apartment. At 24, investors laughed him out of meetings. At 28, those same investors begged to work with him. By 32, Ethan became one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country. Interviews, awards, magazine covers, people called him a genius. But success came with a silence nobody saw. The bigger his empire became, the lonelier he felt. People wanted money from him, connections, influence. Nobody seemed genuine anymore. Then Vanessa appeared. It happened during a charity gala in Manhattan. Ethan hated those events, but his assistant forced him to attend. "Smile at rich people for 2 hours and leave," his assistant joked. Ethan stood near the bar checking emails when a woman beside him suddenly said, "You know you're the only person here who looks miserable." He turned, and for a moment the entire room disappeared. Vanessa Blake, elegant black dress, sharp eyes, confident smile. Not intimidated by him, not desperate for attention. "I'm not miserable," he replied. "You've checked your phone 11 times in 30 seconds. He smirked slightly. "You counted? You're hard to ignore." That line stayed in his head for days. They talked for hours that night, not about money, not about business, about books, childhood memories, fears. For the first time in years, Ethan felt seen, and Vanessa knew it. Within weeks, they became inseparable. Private vacations, luxury dinners, late-night conversations. Social media exploded over them. The perfect billionaire couple. That's what headlines called them. But not everyone was convinced. Marcus, Ethan's best friend since college, didn't trust her. "She moves too carefully," Marcus warned one night. "I'm being paranoid," Ethan rolled his eyes. What does that even mean? It means she studies people before she speaks. She tells you exactly what you want to hear. You're being blinded. No, you're being blinded. Ethan's jaw tightened, watchful mouth. Marcus stepped closer. You think love is supposed to make you smaller. That sentence hit harder than Ethan admitted, but Vanessa knew exactly how to repair the damage. That night she cried in Ethan's arms. "They hate me," she whispered. "That's not true. They think I'm using you. You're not. Then why do they keep trying to destroy us?" He kissed her forehead. "Nobody's destroying us." But slowly, almost invisibly, Vanessa began cutting people out of his life. "Marcus is jealous. Your mother treats me like an outsider. Your employees don't respect me." One by one, Ethan defended her against everyone, and one by one, everyone disappeared. The wedding was enormous. Celebrities, politicians, business giants, the entire country watched them exchange vows beneath golden lights. Vanessa looked breathtaking. Ethan looked invincible. Nobody knew they were watching the beginning of a disaster. The first 3 months felt perfect. Then small changes began. Vanessa suddenly wanted access to company meetings. "You should include me more." Then she wanted financial visibility. "We're married now." Then she wanted authority. "You trust strangers with your empire more than your own wife?" Every conversation somehow ended with Ethan apologizing. Whenever he resisted, Vanessa cried. Whenever he questioned her, she became cold. Whenever he pushed back, she accused him of not loving him enough. And slowly, Ethan began surrendering pieces of himself just to keep peace at home. One night, Vanessa placed documents in front of him during dinner. "What's this?" "Asset restructuring." Ethan barely looked at the papers. "Why?" "It protects us legally." His lawyer later warned him not to sign. There's too much control being transferred. Vanessa overheard the conversation. That night became war. "So now I'm a thief?" she snapped. "That's not what he said. You trust your lawyer more than your wife?" "Vanessa." "No, answer me." Ethan rubbed his forehead tiredly. "I just want to understand." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "You know what? Forget it." She stood up. "I'll never ask for anything again." She locked herself in the bedroom for hours. Ethan sat outside the door feeling guilty. That was always her strategy. Make him feel cruel for questioning her. At 2 a.m., he finally signed the papers, and Vanessa smiled for the first time that night. If you're enjoying this story so far, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because things are about to get much worse for Ethan. 3 months later, the empire started bleeding. A major investment failed, then another, then another. Board members suddenly resigned, investors pulled back, stock prices dropped. Ethan spent sleepless nights trying to stop the damage. Meanwhile, Vanessa remained strangely calm, almost too calm. One evening, Ethan stormed into his office after discovering millions missing from a company account. "Who approved this transfer?" he demanded. His financial officer hesitated nervously. "Mrs. Cole did." Ethan froze. "What?" "She said you authorized it." Ethan drove home at terrifying speed. When he entered the mansion, Vanessa sat peacefully drinking wine beside the fireplace. "You moved company money?" She didn't even look surprised. "You're welcome. That wasn't your decision to make. It was a smart investment. You transferred $40 million. Vanessa finally looked at him, and for the first time since they met, her warmth vanished completely. "You're emotional right now." "Emotional?" Ethan laughed in disbelief. "Are you insane? You always panic before understanding the bigger picture. This is my company." "No," she said quietly. "It's ours now." Ethan stared at her. Something inside him shifted. For the first time, he felt afraid of his own wife.
Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Vanessa lay beside him peacefully while his mind burned with questions. $40 million. Gone. No discussion, no warning, and somehow she acted like he was the problem. At 3 a.m., Ethan quietly got out of bed and walked into his office downstairs. He opened the financial records again. The transfer didn't go to an investment company. It went to a private corporation he had never heard of before. Blackridge Holdings. The deeper he searched, the colder his body became. 3 failed investments, all connected to the same company. A company partially owned by Vanessa. Ethan's chest tightened. No. He clicked through more documents, hidden contracts, private authorizations, shell companies, and then he found the signatures. His signatures. Perfectly legal, perfectly trapped. He sat there staring at the screen while the rain tapped softly against the windows. Every warning came flooding back. Marcus, his mother, his lawyer, all of them saw something he refused to see. Footsteps echoed behind him. Vanessa stood at the doorway in silk pajamas. "You're digging through my files now?" Ethan slowly stood up. "You used me." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Don't be dramatic." "You stole from me." "No," she corrected. "I positioned myself." "You manipulated everything." "And you made it easy." Ethan shook his head slowly, like he was trying to wake himself from a nightmare. "I loved you." Vanessa's expression hardened. "That was your weakness." The silence between them felt deadly. "You know what your real problem is, Ethan," she continued. "You built an empire, but emotionally, you're still that poor little boy, desperate to be loved." That sentence hit him harder than any scream could have. "You targeted me. You were lonely, rich, trusting. It wasn't difficult." Ethan felt physically sick. "How long?" Vanessa smirked faintly. "Since the gala." His eyes widened. The gala, the smile, the conversations, the chemistry, all planned. Every memory suddenly felt poisoned. "You're evil." "No," she replied calmly. "I'm smart." Ethan walked toward her slowly. "Get out." Vanessa laughed softly. "You still don't understand." She stepped closer. "This house isn't yours anymore." Ethan stared at her. "What?" "The transfer finalized this morning." His stomach dropped. "What transfer?" "The one you signed 6 months ago." "I never signed this house away." "You signed authority restructuring papers without reading them." Ethan's breathing became uneven again. "No." "You really should have paid attention to details." "You tricked me." "You were blinded by love." Ethan exploded. "You ruined my life." Vanessa didn't flinch. "No, I exposed how weak you were."
The next few weeks destroyed Ethan completely. News spread fast. Billionaire tech CEO under financial investigation. Ethan Cole faces massive corporate losses. Investors panic amid marriage drama. Media camped outside his properties. Stockholders demanded answers. Employees feared collapse. And worst of all, Vanessa disappeared publicly, leaving Ethan alone to absorb all the damage. One afternoon, Ethan stormed into the emergency board meeting. The room went silent instantly. Board members avoided eye contact. He looked exhausted, tie loose, eyes red, hands shaking slightly. "We can still fix this," Ethan said quickly. "I'm negotiating new funding." One board member sighed heavily. "It's too late." "No, it's not." Another slid documents across the table. "We voted this morning." Ethan frowned. "Voted on what?" The older man looked almost sympathetic. "To remove you as CEO." The room blurred for a second. "What?" "The company has lost confidence in your leadership." "You can't be serious." "It's done." Ethan stared around the room. Men he built with, men he trusted, none of them defended him. One finally spoke quietly. "You gave your wife too much power." Another added coldly, "And now we're all paying for it." Ethan grabbed the papers violently. "You cowards!" Nobody replied, because deep down they knew he caused this. When Ethan returned to the mansion that evening, the gates wouldn't open. 2 guards stood outside. One approached nervously. "Mr. Cole." "Open the gate." "We can't." Ethan laughed once in disbelief. "Are you joking?" "We received instructions this morning." "From who?" The guard hesitated. "Mrs. Cole." He looked toward the mansion in shock. The lights glowed warmly inside. His home, his life, his memories locked away from him. Then the front doors opened. Vanessa stepped outside slowly, beautiful, calm, untouchable. "You embarrassed me today." Ethan walked toward the gate furiously. "You stole my company." "No, you handed it over piece by piece." "I built everything, and I finished taking it." "You're a parasite." Vanessa smiled faintly. "And yet you married me." Ethan grabbed the gate tightly. "Why are you doing this?" For the first time, Vanessa looked honest. "Because power matters more than love." Ethan's face twisted with pain. "I would have given you everything." "I know," she said softly. "That's why this was easy." Then she turned around and walked back inside, and the gates closed. That night, Ethan sat alone in his car outside the mansion for hours. No calls, no messages, nobody came looking for him. The billionaire who once had everything suddenly realized something terrifying. Most people around him were never loyal to him. They were loyal to his success. And now that success was dying, so were the relationships attached to it. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Ethan stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hello." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Where are you?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I don't know anymore." 20 minutes later, Marcus found him sitting inside the car, staring blankly ahead. Marcus opened the passenger door. "You look terrible." Ethan laughed weakly. "That bad?" "You look broken." Ethan nodded slowly. "I think I am." Marcus sat quietly for a moment. Then he asked softly, Did she really take everything? Ethan's eyes watered instantly. She planned it from the beginning. Marcus closed his eyes angrily. I knew something was wrong. I didn't listen. No, he corrected. You didn't want to. Ethan looked down, ashamed. You warned me. So did my mother. So did my lawyer. Marcus leaned back heavily. What matters now is surviving this. But surviving became harder every day. Federal investigators started digging into the company finances. Business partners disappeared. Luxury cars were repossessed. Properties frozen. Bank accounts restricted. The media turned Ethan into entertainment. Talk shows mocked him. Memes spread online. The billionaire destroyed by love. One interview clip went viral where a reporter asked, "How does it feel losing everything to your wife?" Ethan walked away without answering, but inside he was collapsing. Weeks later, Ethan finally returned to his childhood neighborhood, carrying one suitcase. The same streets, the same broken sidewalks, the same tiny apartment building his mother still lived in. He stood outside the door for several seconds before knocking. When his mother opened it, her eyes filled instantly. Not because of the money, not because of the scandal, because her son looked empty. Ethan tried to speak. Nothing came out. Then suddenly he broke completely. He collapsed into her arms, crying harder than he had since childhood. "I messed up," he whispered repeatedly. "I know," she said softly while holding him. "You lost everything." "No," she replied gently. "You're still alive." That sentence stayed in Ethan's head all night, because for weeks he truly felt like his life was over. The next morning he sat silently at the kitchen table, drinking coffee while his mother cooked breakfast. No penthouse, no assistance, no luxury, just silence. And strangely, it felt more peaceful than his mansion ever did. His mother finally sat across from him. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she asked. Ethan looked up slowly. "You stopped listening to people who loved you honestly." Ethan lowered his eyes. "She made me feel understood." "No," his mother said quietly. "She made you feel needed." The difference hit him deeply, because it was true. Vanessa never truly loved him. She studied him, fed his loneliness, controlled his emotions, and by the time he realized it, he was already trapped. If you've ever ignored a red flag because you loved someone too much, comment "lesson learned" below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because Ethan's story isn't over yet. For the next few months, Ethan disappeared from public life. No interviews, no social media, no business conferences. People who once begged for meetings suddenly acted like he never existed. That hurt more than the bankruptcy. One morning, Marcus found Ethan sitting alone on the apartment rooftop, staring at the city skyline. "You've been up here for hours," Marcus said. Ethan shrugged weakly. Couldn't sleep. Marcus sat beside him quietly. "You know, everybody's talking about Vanessa now." Ethan's expression didn't change. "I don't care anymore. She's under investigation." That got Ethan's attention. Marcus handed him his phone. News headlines covered the screen. Vanessa Cole linked to fraud network. Authorities investigating offshore accounts. Former associates speaking out. Ethan stared silently. Marcus looked at him carefully. "You okay?" Ethan gave a bitter laugh. "You know what's crazy?" "What?" "If this happened 6 months ago, I would have defended her." Marcus shook his head slowly. "That woman really got inside your head." "Ethan, she studied my weaknesses better than I did." Ethan leaned back against the wall. "I thought being powerful meant having money." Marcus looked at him. "And now?" Ethan stared at the skyline. "Now, I think power is knowing who deserves access to your heart." For the first time in months, Marcus smiled. "There you are." Ethan frowned slightly. "What?" "The old Ethan." But rebuilding his life wasn't easy. Some days he felt hopeful. Other days he couldn't even get out of bed. Everywhere he looked reminded him of failure. Restaurants they visited together, songs she loved, photos online, clips from the wedding. Sometimes he replayed old conversations in his head, wondering how he missed every sign. One night, Ethan finally asked the question haunting him for months. "Do you think any of it was real?" Marcus looked up from the couch. "What?" "Her feelings." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he answered honestly. "I think people like Vanessa only love what they can gain." That answer hurt, because Ethan already knew it was true. Weeks later, Ethan received an unexpected email from a small entrepreneurship program asking him to mentor young business owners. At first, he almost declined. Then his mother said something that changed his mind. "Maybe losing everything is teaching you who you actually are." So he accepted. The first session felt awkward. The room was small, no cameras, no luxury suits, just young people trying to build something meaningful. One nervous teenager raised his hand. "Mr. Cole, how did you become successful?" The old Ethan would have talked about strategy, investments, leadership. But this version of Ethan answered differently. "I stopped chasing money and started solving problems." The room became quiet. Another student asked, "Then how did you lose everything?" Ethan paused. A painful silence filled the room. Then he finally said, "I ignored character because I was blinded by beauty and attention." Nobody moved. Nobody even checked their phones because the pain in his voice felt real. After that session, several students stayed behind just to thank him, not for his success story, for his honesty. And for the first time since the collapse, Ethan felt useful again. Slowly, life began changing, not upward, not downward, just forward. He started sleeping better, laughing more, thinking clearly again. One evening, his mother noticed something while they ate dinner. "You smiled today." Ethan looked confused. "What?" "You smiled, a real one." He hadn't even noticed. That same night, Marcus entered the apartment holding takeout bags. "You're not going to believe this." "What now?" Marcus dropped his phone onto the table. Vanessa's face filled the screen, only this time she looked terrified. Reporters surrounded her outside a courthouse. "Mrs. Cole, did you manipulate company funds? Were the marriages part of a larger scheme? Did you target wealthy executives intentionally?" Ethan sat frozen. Marcus folded his arms. "She's finished." Vanessa pushed through the reporters aggressively before entering a black UV. But for the first time, she didn't look powerful. She looked hunted. Ethan stared at the screen quietly. Months ago, seeing her suffer would have satisfied him. Now, he mostly felt tired. Marcus noticed. You don't care? Ethan thought carefully before answering. I cared too much for too long. A week later, Ethan received a private call from Vanessa. He almost didn't answer, but eventually he did. Silence filled the line for several seconds. Then Vanessa spoke softly. "They're freezing everything." Ethan remained calm. "Why are you calling me?" "I need help." Ethan almost laughed. "You need help?" "Yes. The same woman who destroyed my life?" Vanessa's voice trembled slightly. "You don't understand what's happening." "No," Ethan said quietly. "I finally do." Another silence. Then Vanessa whispered something unexpected. "I didn't think you'd survive this." Ethan looked out the window. Neither did he. "You underestimated me." Vanessa exhaled shakily. "Maybe. You know the saddest part?" Ethan continued. "I would have done anything for you." "I know. And you still chose greed." Vanessa's voice cracked for the first time. "You think I'm the only villain in this world? Ethan, people only respect power." "No," Ethan replied calmly. "Broken people think that." Silence again. Then Vanessa asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" Ethan thought about everything. The lies, the manipulation, the humiliation, the destruction. Then he answered honestly, "No." Vanessa sounded surprised. "I did for a while, but hate keeps people chained to the past." Ethan stood up slowly and walked toward the window. "You already took enough from me. I won't let you take my peace too." Vanessa began crying softly on the phone, but this time it didn't move him. Not because he became cruel, because he finally saw clearly. "Goodbye, Vanessa," and he ended the call. For the first time since the divorce, Ethan felt free. 1 year later, Ethan stood backstage at a small business conference, waiting to speak. Nothing about the venue was glamorous. No giant screens, no celebrity audience. But somehow, this moment meant more to him than all the Billionaire events combined. The organizer smiled nervously. "They're ready for you." Ethan nodded. As he walked onto the stage, the audience applauded warmly. Not because he was rich, not because he was famous, because people connected with his story. Ethan looked around the room before speaking. "A few years ago, I thought success meant having everything." The room became silent. "I had money, power, attention, influence." He paused briefly. "And I still lost myself." People listened carefully. "Most people think business failures destroyed my life." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, ignoring truth destroyed my life." He walked slowly across the stage. "When people truly love you, they don't isolate you from wisdom." Several people nodded. "They don't manipulate your emotions every time you ask questions." The room remained completely focused. "And they don't make you feel guilty for protecting what matters." Ethan smiled faintly. "I learned something expensive." A few people chuckled softly. "The wrong partner can cost you more than money." His voice deepened. "They can cost you your confidence, your peace, your identity." Complete silence filled the room. Then Ethan said the words that finally closed the chapter of his old life. "Be careful who you build with." The audience erupted into applause, real applause, not for his wealth, for his truth. And somewhere deep inside himself, Ethan finally understood something. Losing everything saved him from becoming someone blind forever. Because sometimes the greatest destruction in life reveals the clearest vision. If this story taught you something valuable, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who